Ms. Nirmal Jain of IIFL is also joining in, and in a bit we will probably have even Vallabh Bhansali joining in. Nirmal, well, 7,500 and 25,000 on the Sensex. What's the sense you're getting? Will you take profit at all?
No, it's a bull market, and I would say that people should resist temptation to book profit at this point in time. I mean, of course, there can be small corrections, but in the bull market, the corrections are smaller and the rally gets bigger and bigger. So at this point in time, one should look forward to a good bull market for the next 5 years. The market has rallied very sharply in last few days, but let the dust settle, and then probably we'll see a more steadier and a long-term bull market. One should, if you look at valuations around 15 times for 1 year forward, they are in line with historic averages. So while we get a little disturbed by or concerned by very sharp rally today and in last few days, but still we should not forget that it's come from absolutely abysmal valuations that Indian market, except for few sectors that we are witnessing. And I think the investors will look forward to corporate earnings growth next year, and also the re-rating of the market. Fortunately for us, even the global cues and the global indicators are very favorable for us because amongst emerging markets, India and China are two large destinations for investments, and China is not doing too well. It has a number of internal problems. So by default, India becomes a favored destination. And if this new government announces policies the way people are expecting and addresses two issues of corruption and inefficiency, then I think we may have a sustained bull run where there will be corrective phases, but it's always a good idea to hold on to your equity positions and ride the bull run.
Okay, Sanjeev, Infosys is down 3%. In fact, just a while back it was down about 5% or so. Do you think it's a case of just money moving to cyclicals, or there's a real issue of maybe much more strength in currency and the market getting worried about what that would mean for IT earnings going forward?
It's clearly a combination of the two. On the one side, you are seeing money moving out of the so-called defensives to the domestic cyclical names, and that has been happening for some time. Over the last 5-6 months, we have seen that trend. And of course, the second driver is clearly currency appreciation, which is going to affect the earnings of these companies. So, even though the the dollar revenues of these companies may be in the low teens, somewhere about 12 to 14%, let's say, for 2015, the problem is the rupee revenues and earnings will not look that good. So, which is where the concern is coming in. And on the other side, if you are seeing a big rally in all the other sectors, and clearly you will see money moving out of consumers, IT, pharma to some extent to the domestic cyclical names.
Okay, and just one final question to you, since this is a sector you track with much passion, Sanjeev. Oil and gas, actually ONGC began with about 9% uptick in pre-market, but it's now kind of sidelined. It's only BPCL which is among the bigger gainers today. Even that is actually seeing some profit taking. ONGC is up 5%, but it pales into comparison with the banks, which are all up 10%. In fact, all the banks in the Nifty are up between 8 and 10%. You think that the market is fearing that an oil and gas clean-up or revolution in the way those companies are run is a bit of a tall order?
No, I think these companies will do well in the medium term, and I base my assessment on the fact that fiscal consolidation is going to be a big thing for the next government, and if that is the focus, then clearly subsidies have to be brought down over a period of time, and the only subsidy which we can look at immediately coming down is fuel subsidies, and you already have a pragmatic program of monthly diesel price increases. So I think over a period of time, clearly subsidies will go down. If you look at our numbers for 2015, as of now, assuming full diesel deregulation by the end of this year, we are looking at about 900 billion rupees of under recoveries compared to 1.4 trillion for 2014. And if that were to be the case, then I see no reason why the government should continue with the subsidy arrangement which we have seen historically, which is a fixed $53 per barrel for the upstream oil companies. I mean, that number will come off. And why is that important? Because ultimately India has to start worrying about energy security. If we continue to pay very low prices to the upstream companies, clearly they will not have money to invest. Let's look at a simple scenario of ONGC's crude realization and gas price. You take a number of, let's say, $55 a barrel net realization compared to, somewhere about low 40s, which it makes currently. You take about $7 per million BTU gas price. You're looking at an EPS of about 45 rupees. If you extend the crude realization to 65, then looking at low 50s as the EPS number. I would argue for 10 times multiple for this company. So anywhere from 450 to 500, this company can go up to quite easily. I think, the next government, I assume, will be focusing on fiscal consolidation, on energy security, and the entire PSU Energy Pact earnings numbers will go up quite dramatically from what we have seen in the last 2-3 years.
All right, Sanjeev, we let you go on that note with the news that is not going to make you fall off your chair. Mr. Narendra Modi has been declared winner from the seat of Vadodara. Shireen, any other such dramatic announcements?
Well, he is the man of the moment, isn't he? He's wrapped it up in Vadodara. It's a clean sweep as far as the polls are concerned for the state of Gujarat. The other headline, Lata, too short of 300, 298 is the NDA tally at this point in time, too short. Mulayam Singh Yadav is in number 3 position in Azamgarh. He is at number 3 at this point in time, and Rahul Gandhi continues to lead over Smriti Irani. As far as the state of Delhi is concerned, or the capital, all swinging in favor of the BJP, all leads at this point in time in every single seat in Delhi in favor of the BJP. But Narendra Modi has wrapped it all up in Vadodara. All eyes now on Varanasi and the margin there.
Indeed, Shireen, just one more word. Rabri Devi, the wife of Lalu Yadav, is now trailing against Rajiv Pratap Rudi in Saran, Bihar. That was also one seat where BJP was trailing. Now I think that's reversed. I think we'll have graphics soon. That's the latest update that we have from Bihar at this point.
I would still not look at the NDA at 298 or too short of 300 as the big news, as much as the BJP at 256 with still 24 leads not yet coming in. I mean, not 24, 25. This is 256 out of 520 seats that we're counting as
23 are left.
Yeah.
And you're looking at 16 out of 23, which is
545.
543.
Okay, all right. So 23 seats more left to come. So, it could well be out of that 23 with the same extrapolation. We are looking at 270 as pretty much possible for the BJP. Okay, 257 as I speak with you. Nirmal Jain, this is the first time that Market and India Inc., which always secretly loved, or not even always secretly, overtly loved the pro-business party. I mean, what does this mean? This is, you said that you're not going to sell out at this time, but what will you buy now with everything sitting so big and fat already?
As I said, if the market valuations are in line with the historic average, then obviously there will be a number of opportunities. And probably I look for opportunities in mid-cap, small-cap, and also some of the large caps in cyclicals, in capital goods, in infrastructure sector. I think maybe today is a day when there will be a lot of volatile movements up and down, but one will have a lot of time because no bull market gets over in a week's time. My personal view is that we should look forward to a bull market for the next 5 years, so there will be a lot of opportunities, many new opportunities will come our way. And I think now all eyes will be on who is the next finance minister and what are the measures this government announces as soon as it takes charge. There are a lot of expectations and there are a lot of low-hanging fruits as well, because in the last 3 years we saw that the government was not functioning at all. So on one hand people would say that expectations are very high, and on the other hand there are very easy wins that this government can do, and more particularly with this kind of clear majority and clear mandate, they can have a lot more courage, a lot more strength to take steps which are not populist. And also, if people look at election, then this is not a vote for a populist measure, but this is a vote for meritocracy in Gujarat, where power was expensive but was available 24/7. The jobs were being created, but there was no free money doled out. So I think this is what people will look at, and I mean, if this really happens, then we can look forward to a long-term growth as well as long-term bull market.
Okay, well, the BJP manifesto didn't say as much, though Mr. Modi's actions, as you rightly say, did indicate meritocracy and no doles in Gujarat. The BJP manifesto still spoke of subsidies, so that there is one grain bit of fear. And what was Mr. Modi's statement even to Sanjay Pugalia in that interview? Garibon ki haq pehli hai tijori pe, desh ki tijori pe. So, let us see how the policies turn out. He will probably dovetail the doles even to performance.
I'll tell you one thing. In India, sometimes we forget to look at the taxation angle on some of these oil products. It's not that as if you're getting petrol and diesel at much cheaper rate than you ought to get them. For example, you look at what BJP government did in Goa. They overnight brought the petrol prices down by about 16 rupees without that hurting the oil marketing companies. So really, I mean, some of these oil pricing issues have to be sorted. But by the way, in UP it's 65 now, the tally for the BJP.
That's like much more than a clean sweep. 80 seats on offer, 65 is one. And I believe Ravi Shankar Prasad is speaking, so let's just cut to him salivating over the victory.
For the first time, a BJP-led front is getting a clear majority. Maybe with people's blessings, BJP on its own may be near the magic number.
Yes.
That is a tectonic shift in the polity of India, number one. Number two, the entire India is voting. The poor are voting. The marginalized are voting. And I would say large number of Muslim young people are also voting for Narendra Modi. Lalu Prasad is almost getting swept out. Nitish Kumar is decimated. Mulayam Singh Yadav is finding hard to survive. Ajit Singh has been defeated. If you see this heartland politics, as a political observer of your stature, you must learn to read the real meaning of this mandate.
RJD has got about 4 seats, leading in 4, so they are not entirely wiped out. The JDU at the moment is only leading in 2, but even the performance in your is actually leading now in 4. But even in your home state, it's a spectacular performance. You're leading in 23 seats. So I concede that the Hindi heartland has seen a big shift. Is this only about Modi? Has this election been about the strategy that you took of making this election presidential? Has that been at the core of this kind of success?
Well, some kind of leadership element is relevant in any elections. Let me concede it straight away. But for Shivraj Singh Chauhan or Raman Singh or Vasundhara Raje, you would not have done that well in those states.
Sorry, I'm compelled to cut out because the numbers are more important than the words. It's 300 NDA and I wanted to salivate on that as much as I want to salivate on 25,000 Sensex. It's 300 NDA and 260 BJP.
And still 19 to go, Lata.
Absolutely. We're counting, even the leads have not yet come in.
Indeed.
So, you can't rule out that the BJP is going to be within striking distance of 272 on its own. A 300 NDA was always expected, it was always minus 30 BJP. So, it could well be that you're going to get a 270.
And exit polls will have their respect back, Lata.
For the first time, actually, the exit polls, not more than exit polls, even the pre-poll surveys are going to get their win back their respect, because this clearly is vindicating all that the election surveys and the exit polls indicated. Just a word to our viewers before we go to our experts who are still waiting by. You can watch all the interviews so far on that you saw on CNBC TV 18 on moneycontrol.com and on Money Control message board as well. Keep a close eye on that message. Fun to read at this juncture. Well, we have to take a break. Our experts are waiting by, but we will come back and we have lots to celebrate and salivate on the markets as well. Welcome back. 25,000 on the Sensex was touched, 7,550 on the Nifty, and 300 for the NDA was touched. In terms of leads, latest tallies coming in is over 260 for the BJP, and still 19 seats leads not yet started off. So a good chance that the BJP on its own could be at majority or very, very, very close to majority. Let's welcome more guests onto the show to put into perspective this kind of an extraordinary stable government that India is likely to have for the first time after 1984. Life has Kisan, the chief economist, India and ASEAN at HSBC is also joining into the conversation. Life, do you think now there will be a renewed regard and investment interest in India among the FIIs?
No, yeah, I would certainly think so. I mean, of course, it's not a final result, but by the looks of it right now, it looks like it's going to be the type of results that foreign investors are going to be quite happy with. It's looks like NDA at least combined will look at an outright majority, right? So that makes it, of course, easy to form government relatively quickly. I think it's also something that would, of course, instigate more political stability. And then importantly, it's something that would provide, if these results are confirmed, the government, so to speak, with the political muscle to begin to move forward the much needed structural reforms that have been holding back growth for the last several years. I think also a BJP-led government would focus a fair bit on infrastructure, upgrading of that, expediting that. That's also something that would be looked upon favorably by foreign investors, because of course that's critical to turn things around. The next question, of course, is how quickly will that all happen?
Okay, well, Life, a few sectors could start seeing activity already. Finance sector, for sure. You're going to see perhaps the retail investors who have stayed out of the market for the last 5-6 years come in. You could see banks seeing stirrings of activity. Do you think you will have any reason to up growth and other forecasts this year itself? Or will you at this point up FY16 GDP forecasts?
At this point, we're not looking at making any changes to our growth forecast. Essentially, our growth forecasts, as we talked about before we entered into the election home stretch here, already factored in that we would get a strong mandate government, and on the back of this, that we could get traction on reform, we could get traction on investment projects, and the investment cycle on the back of this will begin to turn. But as I've said before, it's not something that would change things on the ground, growth on the ground very quickly in the short term. I think a lot of these reforms, a lot of these changes will play out more on a 2 to 3 year basis, and on that horizon have more of an impact on growth. So we're still looking at 5.3% growth in the current fiscal year. Next year it could move up, to around 6% next fiscal year, and potentially the year after that to around 7%. But as I said, that factors in the strong mandate and the ability that gives the government to move things forward on the structural reform side. But these are structural reforms. You cannot just turn them on overnight. It takes a while for them to actually get through the political machinery. Some structural reforms take a while before they have an impact on growth. So I think we have to be a bit realistic about how quickly you can sort of lift these structural constraints.
Okay, live high morning. What about the move next for the currency? Because on one hand you'll have the RBI, which will be worried if it's going past say 58 or so. On the other hand, there's some belief that NDA's policy is that they want to see the currency appreciate. Where does that fit in, and what's next for the currency, say over the next 1 year or so?
Well, certainly, support from the outcome here, and if it's confirmed in the short term, I think there probably will be some resistance from the RBI. They want to avoid an appreciation that's too strong, considering where cyclically the economy is at the moment. And we've also seen this in the run-up over the last couple of weeks or so. There has been interventions, etc. Right? So there'll be some resistance at around the 58 mark, if you will. I think if we look a little bit further ahead to the rest of the year, we're still looking at against the dollar again, a slight weakening. So we're actually looking at it potentially could move into the 62 against the dollar by the end of the calendar year. But that doesn't necessarily have a lot to do with India itself. It also has to do with a growth story in the US that we expect will begin to firm up a bit more in the second half of 2014. That, of course, will begin to have implications for expectations about the recalibration of US monetary policy. So that's also part of the story there. You could also say, we'll have to see how much of the hope and expectations that have been built into the currency at the moment can be delivered when Monday morning comes around. So that's another factor. Maybe be a little bit more difficult to deliver on the ground what has in a sense been built into expectations in the markets.
All right. By the way, the market has cooled off slightly. The Nifty is now up only 250 points, below 7,400 as well. Yep. There was a time when it was above 75.50 as well. Nirmal, this one question I'm getting a lot on my Twitter feed as well. A lot of retail people want to know, look, we have missed out. Make no mistake about that. But what to do now? Can we enter this market now? Should we wait for a correction? And if yes, for how much? And that's a $1 million question for retail right now.
Yeah, in fact, it's a $1 billion question. But what you're saying is absolutely right. Retail people have missed out. Not only that, in last few weeks when the market was rallying, many of them who are frustrated after holding their stocks for 5-6 years, they exited. In fact, even the mutual fund, if you look at last 1 year, then many of the retail investors have redeemed and got out of the market completely. But this unfortunately is always the phenomena because they get their conviction a little later. But in last few days, again, when we talk about retail, there are millions of investors. So there are a few smarter ones or those who are more cued into the market. They have been bringing in money. My feeling is that, because there are a lot of skepticism about whether there will be a stable government, whether this thing will happen or not. But fact of the matter is that the young India and majority of India has voted for this. So I would say that retail investors will come back as they see the rally stabilizing and continuing. We already seen some trend in last few days in post-exit poll. And I would say that will accelerate and there will be a lot of stock picking that will be possible in mid-cap and small-cap for retail investors. but a lot will happen there. I think they're still out of the market and they're just waiting to get into the market.
All right. By the way, Lata, from agencies I'm getting this. BJP is now BJP alone 271 with 3 seats still to be counted. So we are looking at BJP
this is a sweep. I mean, BJP on its own likely to get 272. I mean, these are leads, no taking away from that, but nevertheless, on its own 272. I think other than the Chanakya group, nobody predicted.
Yeah, it was only today's Chanakya which has said majority for BJP alone and 340 for the NDA.
Yeah, which could mean a slightly unencumbered or a rather unencumbered government. Now, and a rather unencumbered government would also mean not tolerating nonsense or not tolerating opposition from institutions. Life come in on that. Yesterday's wholesale numbers, inflation numbers were slightly heartening, but what the Reserve Bank is correctly concentrating is on the CPI number, and that actually worsened. There could be a stage set up for a confrontation between an inflation targeting Reserve Bank and a government that wants to deliver growth in a hurry. Now, this is actually just a media creation of confrontation, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. Would the market take it very big if the Reserve Bank governor was made uncomfortable enough that he had to leave?
That would not be good. I think RBI has gained a lot of credibility on the back of the steps we've seen under Raghuram Rajan. I mean, it's not just about shifting to more inflation targeting focus. It's also that they've actually acted on it. They've begun to sort of tighten monetary policy. So they've sort of walked the walk. They've not just talked the talk. So I think that's been a positive as far as anchoring expectations, building credibility around RBI as an institution, right? So I think what the government, of course, has to focus on, as we've talked about, is getting the reform agenda up and running and move things forward on that front. But it's also very, very important for the growth story going forward that they commit to macroeconomic stability. And that's, of course, where fiscal policy comes in, consolidation on that front. But it's also, in a sense, allowing the central bank to act independently, to focus on the key target for them, which is inflation. And that would also help bring about, of course, macro stability and provide a more enabling business environment. And on the back of that, a more enabling investment climate.
Yeah, those are the things that markets and experts like you will watch out for in the days to come. Life Eskisen, thank you very much for joining on what's a very big moment for this country. After a long hiatus, it is imminent that we are going to get a stable government, a government with a stable majority. The NDA going past the 300 seats and how 306 for sure, maybe even more, and the BJP on its own likely to touch 270 plus at this point in time. Shireen, come in on that.
Well, that is right, Lata. It looks like Mission 272 for the BJP is going to be realized pretty much on its own. In fact, news just coming in, Lata. Tarun Gogoi, the Chief Minister of Assam, is likely to tender in his resignation, accepting and taking responsibility for the Congress's performance in the state of Assam. This is the news flash that I've just got. Tarun Gogoi, the Chief Minister of Assam, so that Congress bastion also being swept under this Modi wave. Even the smaller states, I mean, I'm just taking a look at what's happening in states like Uttarakhand, Himachal Pradesh. I mean, we've talked ad nauseum about Gujarat, Bihar, etc. Even the smaller states, I mean, it is clear advantage BJP state after state. At this point in time, Mission 272 seems like a done deal as far as the BJP is concerned. The markets are congratulating Narendra Modi. Rajnath Singh has made that call as well, congratulating LK Advani and Narendra Modi. He, of course, is the man.
Shireen, you spoke about Tarun Gogoi. I believe his son himself has lost.
That's right, Anuj. That is the news flash that I've just got, that Tarun Gogoi is going to be tendering in his resignation, accepting responsibility for the failure in Assam.
Okay, one question before we go into a break, Anuj and Shireen. The Nifty is off about 200 points from the day's high. Should we, and the market now knows what we know, that it is going to be a 300 plus NDA and probably a 270 BJP. In spite of it, we have seen bouts of profit taking. Should we say that hopes of a circuit, or fears of a circuit, I should say, have faded completely? Or is that big London opening still on your head?
That London opening is on the head, but that will come, once that 10% criteria will move to 15%. This 10% is only till 1 p.m. Lata. Keep that at the back of your mind. I think the circuit scenario as of now frankly is gone. That does not mean that the market tops out. That's one mistake which should not be made, and I think today the people who would be happy would be exchanges and the brokers, because you're going to have all-time high turnover. Make no mistake about that. Already crossed 2 lakh crores.
Not just all-time high turnover, the very fact that you sat out of this grand rally will mean further business in the days to
Indeed.
come. So opening up shuttered, shops in several cities, re-recruiting people who you had to retrench probably during the lean days. All that is going to mean that at least finance companies are going to see
brokers last month had appealed to SEBI to allow trading till 5 p.m. today, which is allowed under the law, by the way, and to have a special trading session tomorrow, because they knew what was coming so quite clearly.
Yeah, this is big day for the markets, big day for the country, you will have to say. That's the more important entity on which every one of us is long, as I said in the beginning of the day. There are positions in the market, long and short, but on the country, all of us have only long positions. And it's a big day if we have a stable government. One only hopes that it delivers all those aspirations, or at least much of those aspirations with which it has been voted to power. We have to take a break. We've gone on for a goodish bit, but we have more experts and more, I'm sure, breaking news coming in from the markets and from the poll boxes as well.
देशवासियों का सपना पूरा हुआ। देशवासियों ने 272 प्लस का टारगेट तय किया था, और देशवासियों ने तय किया था कि वो नरेंद्र मोदी जी को भारत का प्रधानमंत्री बनाना चाहते हैं। हमें बड़ी खुशी है कि वो सपना साकार होता हुआ नजर आ रहा है। जो रुझान है 272 से ज्यादा सीटों पर वो भारतीय जनता पार्टी की विजय दिखा रहे हैं।